Hey, what's up guys? Tony here, and welcome to another episode of Tuesdays with Tony. And in this episode, we're going to talk about being the new guy, or new gal. But I can only talk about being the new guy since I'm a guy. So if you're a gal, if you're a lady, insert guy or insert girl in with instead of guy, and hopefully what I have to talk about is applicable to you. If not, my bad. I can't I can't fix that one bit. But anyways, I'm quite inspired by my recent recently being hired at Best Buy, and being one of many new guys and a few gals at Best Buy during this holiday season. And I kind of wanted to, and the first thing I had thought about when I thought about doing this commentary was I think it was the Harvard prison experiment. It was a psychological experiment. I think it was done like in the 60s or maybe early 70s. Basically, they took a bunch of students who volunteered for this experiment, and they separated them into prisoners and guards, and they mocked up like a fake penitentiary, somewhere in the psychological area of Harvard or whatever. And what was interesting about this experiment is that after a while, I don't know how long they were running this experiment, but the students, they started to take on the social roles of prisoners and guards, and the guards kind of became like dicks. They were treating the prisoners poorly, and the prisoners were plotting against the guards. I mean, these were college students, and they were reacting and acting just like real life prisoners and real life guards. And the reason why I bring it up and the reason why I tie it together is because when you come into a new job, and for those of you guys who don't have jobs or who are too young to have a job, it's not really the same as being the new guy in a social environment such as school. So I want to get to that one a little bit because I've got plenty of experience with that, as well as plenty of experience of being the new guy at work. But what's interesting, and what I thought about this first, what's interesting is the fact that when you come into a new job, your new coworkers tend to treat you in a way that is sometimes can be offensive in a way. I mean, it depends on like how thick your skin is, because they kind of treat you like you're an idiot, and I mean, nothing. You're like an infant when it comes to whatever new job that you're doing. But there's a period in which your coworkers will just treat you like absolutely nothing, and no matter how many days you work and you're catching on, there's still this time where they'll treat you like you don't know anything. And especially when it comes to computers, and especially when it comes to programs that you're trying to learn, say for Register. And this really hasn't happened to me. I've watched it happen to some of my other coworkers, some other new guys, we're called occasional seasonal employees. And what happens is when you're at the Register, and maybe you're looking on the screen to try to figure out what to do, but you don't know the keys off the top of your head. Someone who does know what they're doing, they'll be like F3, F4, F5 in that order, and then you're just kind of like, well, cool, thanks for telling me the sequence, but I need to visually read it, punch it in, and get it done. And people will always come up like, oh, hey, do you know how to take credit cards? You know how to do this, right? Don't you? And they, even though you've been there for 3 or 4 or 5 days and you've kind of handled it, and you can show that you know what you're talking about, there's this just gray period, or I guess it's just the noob period. I don't know. I think you got to be working at a place for about a month before your coworkers say, okay, this guy knows what he's doing. Inside of a week, 2 weeks, people are still kind of like, doesn't know what he's doing. Anyways, I found that interesting because even now, I've worked at Best Buy for a little over a week now. I feel very comfortable and I feel very competent, from my humble opinion, on these machines and working these registers and doing what I'm paid to do. And it's funny to see my coworkers' reaction, and usually, like, the people that I've been working with, they already know. They're like, okay, this guy's good. But when you run into people that you don't really know so well and you haven't worked with so much, they're always like looking over your shoulder, like, is this guy doing what he's supposed to be? Which is normal. That's fine. But after a while, you get that kind of like, I got this feeling. You kind of want to be like, okay, you can not hover, it's okay, I got this. if I do have a question, I will ask. And you always get that, like, oh, do you have any questions? You know, and I don't mean that to be like a mean, you know, like I know everything. That's not at all what I'm trying to say. But it's just this experience that I think we all have going into the workplace when you're a new employee, especially at a place where it's sort of a skillless job. It's not a skilled job like being a mechanic, you know. If you're a mechanic or a computer guy or whatever, you should already have those skills when you're applying for a job to be a mechanic. The assumption is you're mechanically inclined and you've already been trained as a mechanic in some form or fashion. And so when someone asks you to do a task, they already know that especially if you're certified, they already know that you know how to do it. Well, when you're working in a job like, I don't know, retail or fast food or, I don't know, any sort of clerical job where you need to learn a procedure, then there's that period of, well, here's the procedure, and they'll keep asking you about it over and over again until they feel comfortable that you're good. And it's just a really uncomfortable period, you know, because we all want to fit in. You know, that's one thing that we all want to do. We don't want to be those people on the outside, and it's kind of it's kind of like a badge. It's literal and figurative here, but it's a badge when you're the one who doesn't look like one of the group. And that's another thing that's really interesting about being the new guy is that one of my coworkers pointed out, they're like, you know, you can always tell who the noobs are. He used the word noobs. He's like, you always tell who the noobs. Oh, and newbies is another one. That's another funny term. My boss, my immediate boss, I've got several bosses, but my most immediate boss, she referred to us as newbies. She's like, okay, you newbies haven't done this, that, and the other. Not new guys or new people or new employees or fresh employees. I've heard that one before. You fresh employees. That's a very PC way of putting it. But you newbies is like, holy crap. Someone actually said that, like in a real life situation. But anyways, yeah, so that's sort of a banner of being the new guy. But it was going back to what I was saying is this guy was like, all the new guys, the newbies, you can always tell which ones they are because they've got the really blue Best Buy shirts, not the ones that have been washed 1,000 times, you know, and are faded, but the blue ones, the nice bright blue ones. And of course we don't have name tags either, so that's another great indicator that you're a new employee is that you don't have a name tag. The company hasn't invested enough money to actually manufacture a piece of plastic with your name on it. But I find that I have found that interesting because since I've had 2 jobs in this last year alone, so I've been the new guy twice this year, and man, is it always an uncomfortable situation. When I was working at Papa John's, I had this one guy working with me, this guy Matt, and he was a character to say the least. And I had already been a delivery driver for Pizza Hut for 2 years, but when I moved over to Papa John's, and so I had made it a point to make that clear to everybody that, hey, I've already been a delivery driver. I know what I'm doing. All I need to do is learn these little computers, Papa John's and the procedures, and the area. But other than that, I got the delivery driver job down. But I had this guy, Matt, like coming over all the time. You know, he was like always talking down to me, and he was always trying to do my job for me, even though I'm trying to learn the job. And it made for a very frustrating situation when I was working at Papa John's. I wanted to punch that dude in the face so bad, but I didn't because he had prison tats on, and apparently he had been in prison, and he enjoyed reading that book, 50 Shades of Grey. So he was probably just weird all around, and I didn't want to mess with that. I was like, I'm not messing with that. But the other environment that I think is really interesting and not as severe as say a work environment is a school environment. Any sort of social, even social, actually school social environment, but I'll say school first because in a social environment, when you meet new people, it's relatively easy to just latch on and become friends if you hang out with these people and you're the new guy in a group. Say you got a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and I guess I'm tackling this one first after all. So you got a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and they introduce you to their friends, and so you start hanging out with their friends, and it's pretty easy to just, you already have an in with them. You've got the boyfriend or the girlfriend, and you can just easily make friends with the group. So that the awkwardness of that period is only limited to conversations and situations where you have no idea what the history behind some of these conversations, because you'll get into a situation, it always happens, I swear to God, where someone goes, oh man, can you believe that, Sally blah 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 said this, and someone's like, oh yeah, that's so stupid, blah blah blah. And you're just like, what are you talking about? Why is it funny? Or someone makes an inside joke or makes a joke about something that happened 2 years ago and the whole group laughs, and you're sitting there like, what's so funny about that? I don't understand what's so funny. And you're left in the dark, and that's probably about as uncomfortable of a situation as you run into as being a new guy in sort of a friend's environment. And I think so the middle ground of this, so you got the really uncomfortable is a new guy at work, and sort of these no skilled occupations, and anyway, so like non-skilled labor jobs. And then the spectrum goes from, say, those jobs to friendships or friends in this. So that's the spectrum. So you got really difficult to be the new guy to not so bad being a new guy. In the middle ground, I think, is school. And some people might argue with me because they've been the new guy in, say, high school or whatever, and they had a really shitty time. But really, the situation is that, like, I've been the new guy at several different schools throughout my life. And all of them have been pretty much the same thing, where when you're the new guy, two things will happen. Either people won't give a shit about you. There'll always be one person that takes pity on you and says, hey, how's it going? My name is so-and-so. And you've got yourself your first friend. They might not end up being your best friend. They're just sort of your in friend. That's your friend. You meet some other people, and once you get known, you might make other friends. And that's pretty much what happened to me in the high school, where I was sort of standing around, and this guy tapped me on the shoulder, and he was like, hey, what's up? My name is, can't remember his name off the top of my head right now. And I was like, hey, how's it going? Tony. And he introduced me to his group of friends. It was these two girls and him and maybe somebody else. But then as I grew comfortable, because this is my freshman year in high school, as I grew comfortable being in the high school, I found other friends. I found other people that were more in line with what it is I like to do. So when I was just so you know, when I was a freshman in high school, wrestling, WWF was like really big, and these people were really into WWF. And I was not. I was a baseball player, and I liked to play football. And so I began to make friends with the people who played football during lunch. And so I started getting into that crowd. And then I wasn't hanging out with these other people anymore. And it got to the point where eventually I just never hung out with them anymore. Barely. I talked to them in passing, but I was one of the football playing guys at lunch, and that's just who I was. Before that, in middle school, I changed middle schools my 8th grade year, and my parents moved out to Las Vegas, so we moved from Oceanside to Las Vegas, and I was the new guy in my 8th grade year, which is the last year. You're the king of the hill in middle school before you become a freshman, a shitty freshman in high school. And so here I was, top of the hill, with all my friends that I've grown up with from K through 8th grade. We all went to the same elementary school. We all went to the same middle school. And I was leaving them, and I was going to a brand new place and a brand new school and a brand new state and a brand new city. And I knew nobody, absolutely nobody. And that was really uncomfortable. But I had a very warm reception. But the one thing that I will say about the one great thing about starting over in a new school or starting over with a new group of friends is you can really reinvent yourself. If you ever wanted to get into the, just because I always wanted to be more whatever, insert whatever you want to be more. You want to be more bold. You want to be more funny. You want to be crazier. You want to be that guy who's streaking or whatever. But in your soul, in the group, the people already know you. They know you're the shy guy that sits in the back part of the dance hall or whatever and just bobs his head and drinks his punch or whatever. But when you get into this new social group, you can be anybody you want to be. You could be bold, you could be outrageous, you could be whatever it is you want to be. And my for instance came when I was getting picked on. There was this guy, his name was Tim, I believe, and he liked this girl who liked me a lot. And after like a week or two of class, we were walking out to lunch or whatever, and he's sitting there, and he was behind me, and he was talking all sorts of shit, but he wasn't talking to me. He was talking to somebody next to him, but they were like literally right behind me, and they were talking. This guy was talking so loud that I could actually hear it, and probably was saying that intentionally. So I ended up turning around on him, and I got into his face, and I asked, basically, I said, like, you gonna keep talking shit, or are we gonna throw down here? I mean, if you keep talking shit, we're gonna throw down. So are you gonna shut up? And the guy shut up, you know, and he walked away. And I never had problems with that guy. And later on, we kind of became friendly with one another. I wouldn't say we became friends, but we became friendly. And it was at that point that I realized, like, holy crap, I could be whoever I want, because nobody knows me. Nobody knows that I am shy, and that, you know, I'm more funny than anything else. That I don't have to be the things that I was when I was at my old school. I can be whatever I want to. And that was really cool, and it was eye-opening for me. And I kind of took that sort of approach as I moved on through other parts of my life, and you develop this, you know, this sort of inner sense of self, you know, instead of, and going back on what I was talking about the Harvard experience, instead of falling into these roles, and, you know, when people treat you a certain way, and this is kind of why I missed this conclusion earlier, but when people treat you a certain way, especially in a job environment, they treat you like you're dumb, you don't know what you're doing, you know, then you tend to like buy into that, you make mistakes, and then they sort of reinforces these people like, oh God, the new guy just messed up again. And you're like, oh my God, I messed up again. And then you get worried about messing up, and then you actually mess up more than if you would just be confident, you know? And that's the way that I approach being the new guy now, is I just go in, I be me, I be confident, because I know that I'm smart. I know that I can handle certain situations. I can handle pressured situations, but that doesn't mean that I don't make mistakes, and that doesn't mean that I don't need to ask questions, and it doesn't mean that I can't get flustered because maybe I don't know how to do something, and maybe the pressure might get to me. But the moral of that story is that I always do my best to bring the most confident version of Tony out, and I try to remain the most confident Tony that I can be all the time, because that's the persona that I want to display when I work. I don't want to show them that I'm uncomfortable. I don't want to show them that I don't know, that I don't want to show them that the whole idea of the new guy image, the new guy who doesn't know anything. I want to show them that that's not me, basically, is what I'm saying. So what I am going to impart on you guys in the conclusion of this commentary is that if you find yourself in a situation where you're the new guy, I would suggest that you go ahead, and if you are a person who is a little sheepish, maybe a little quiet, try to be the guy that is more outgoing and more talkative, and not outgoing in that crazy wild party, let's take my shirt off and go streaking sort of situation, but more confident in that you know your own abilities. It's a quiet confidence. It's a quiet confidence that you know your abilities, you know that you're good at whatever you're gonna be good at whatever you're gonna do, and that sort of quiet confidence carries. A lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot of people, some people view it as arrogance, other people recognize for what it is. I recognize it's quiet confidence. You know, there's nothing wrong with being confident in yourself and confident in your abilities. But when you become arrogant about it, that's a different story, and that's a different commentary altogether. So anyways, guys, I've been running way too long for Tuesdays with Tony, and I guess I'll just end it here. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and I'll talk to you guys later.